that. And that CBMC helped me in the business, etc. To learn that you can be a powerful voice for Christ. And the military are the most spiritual organization besides the church, right?
Yes.
And that's what I learned. I was 19 years old when I joined the Navy to be a naval aviator. And I can understand. I finally had, we meet with a bunch of naval aviators. We call it tailbook lunch the second Friday, a week from today, from tomorrow. And so I needed a story to tell, not the same as Karl. For 25 years I had one flat tire in a Navy airplane and one in a Northwest airplane, Electra. And so Christ finally allowed me to have an engine fire over Mason City at midnight. So when I go to these meetings with other Navy pilots, I can say, well, I did something heroic. And you guys know what it means. Sometimes when you do everything right, you can still be close to a disaster. And I had a surplus of fuel in my airplane with a P-2V Neptune, anti-submarine warfare plane. I was just going to do around here, shoot landings and approaches. And the operations guy said, here's a chief wants to get to Olathe, Kansas. Can you just give him a ride? I thought I'd do a good deed. Well, I checked the airplane and it had too much fuel for my local flight. And it had enough to go to Kansas and back without refueling. So that's one thing. Normally we would cheat sometimes and turn one jet engine on to give extra 50 knots. And since this was at night, I thought he kept me from turning it on. Then on the way back, approaching midnight, I thought maybe I'll turn it on to get home quickly, and I didn't do it. And over Mason City, I had the engine fires. I shut one engine out, and your fuel goes up by more than double on the one engine. And I get to Minneapolis around 11:30 at night, and it's fogged in. Only 10 feet of fog, but legally I could not make an approach because it was too low. And I held for a while, and finally I went to Rochester. Barely made it to Rochester, the same weather came into Rochester. And I was running low on fuel by this time. That's it's amazing. But it's fun. It's the greatest decision I ever made besides accepting Christ as your Savior. Right?
Yes.
To be a naval. You guys are wise. Both my sons are Marine officers. My youngest son is retiring as a colonel at the end of this year. God used him to order these vehicles called MRAPs. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, sorry.
That was him. He was mobilized for 1 year, and they gave him a job at Central Command, Marine Corps, guaranteed to fail. And God used him to order these for the Marines. And Secretary of Defense, I forgot his name, Carter, I think. He learned of them from the press and ordered 9,000 for the Army, and our casualty rate went down by 85%. So you don't know, you think you're going to be a junior officer, but you might have a very responsible job, right? You'll never get that responsible job in civilian life. I can't think of it that early.
I'll tell you another quick story about Karl's memory. During our reunion in Tucson, Dave, the rescue guy, myself, were invited to go over to the local rescue squadron at Davis Mountain Air Force Base. And those guys are Special Ops Rescue, which they really do some spooky stuff. And they took us out and showed us their 130, and then they took us and showed us their Apache helicopters that were specially configured. But what impressed us the most, and they wanted to hear Karl's story. They wanted to hear my roomie Dave Pettit talk about the rescue. And so the commander, that's what I recall, the commander's call of all 80 or 100 officers in that squadron, just to hear our little presentation. And we were very honored by that. Karl's name came up in that a number of times because he had a bloodline connection to those rescue people, and they knew exactly what we were talking about. I was impressed with them, so Karl's legacy is carried on in those rescue people that go out and do that today.
One of the real joys of my life was to go to, you might wonder how going to Prior Lake would be a real joy of my life, but it was a Memorial Day event that Jim Goodman and Karl spoke at together. It was kind of a tag team thing, and they talked about that experience in Vietnam. And it was so good, and I thought, oh, I hope they have a chance to do this many more times. It was not to be. But you're doing a great job by yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim. Now, less than a month after that, Karl was diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Kind of the message that Karl and I had. You know, Memorial Day is a little bit hard to figure a message for. It was kind of hard to bring this story into the message of Memorial Day. But the way we did that, and I think it's important, is you memorialize people who've given their lives. But in my opinion, you also memorialize people who are willing to give their lives for others. And the Rescue Corps does that better than anybody else. I mean, they are right now, and you're a combat medic. You know what that's all about. You know, being willing to step out there. And we have a Medal of Honor recipient a couple days ago that was involved in that kind of rescue stuff. And you just have to take your hat off to people who are willing to step in there and save lives at the expense of their own.
I think that's how God created us, so we don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, sure.
If you knew how hot it's gonna be, you wouldn't have probably, it would have been worse for you. You know, and so that's why we're ignorant of the future. We have to trust Christ for our lives. Well, I never heard Karl. I've known Karl for at least 20 years, but he never even, he spoke once, and he never mentioned anything like what you said at the memorial service.
Well, Eunice kicked the ball off on that, and she had a wonderful idea, and that was that probably an awful lot of people that knew Karl never knew that side of his life. And so that's a story that needed to be told.
It would have been exciting too.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you. And you, people were awestruck by what you said at Karl's service, Jim. And I can't thank you enough for that.
All he said about flying the transports, he never said even helicopter. I was so shocked when he said he flew a helicopter at the memorial service.
And good for him for volunteering, or for doing what he's asked to do, because most of us, the last thing we would want to do is jump in a helicopter and fly another airplane. But he did it, and he obviously did an incredible job of it.
Well, I got a book, I haven't read it yet, I just bought it, about the Jolly Green Giants, that they lost 18 guys trying to get somebody out from Laos.
I'm babbling, but there's another important thing I need to say. And that is for doing the job that I did, my primary job in that force was to, I didn't go to North Vietnam except once, but my job was to rally to the aid of Marine Corps and Army guys who were down in the bushes. I will say today that their job was 20 times nastier than mine was. But every time I flew over enemy territory, I had this huge, snuggy, comfortable blanket over me that said, if I go down, there's going to be rescue guys that are on the way. They're on the way to get me.
Were you the
We had, every one of us had that feeling. And wow, that was an incredible, comfy, snuggy blanket.
Were you involved in Quezon?
Yeah, went up to Quezon a lot of times.
I only had the privilege of knowing Karl for the past 2 years, but in the time I did get to know him, he was just an awesome individual, and personally, he's the most decorated person I've known. I don't really come from a military family or anything, but like I knew when I first met him, like this guy he's so humble. Like honestly, I personally haven't heard his story from him. It's not something he just talked about all the time, but he's willing to really give his time to people in ROTC. To some people who think like, you know, it might be a waste of time to go to colleges and put on these events, but like honestly for me it made a world of difference. And like, to be honest, I really respect that, and I really learned so much from people like him, just really humbly giving their lives to just keep sharing what they really stand for and what they really believe.
Yeah, I think I can be bold enough to talk for all the ROTC cadets, the ones here and those that have been to LCF meetings in the past, that, well, as we all know, there's no greater love than to lay down your life for a friend, and it's obvious that Karl did that in huge ways while he was active duty with the military, as well as such small ways, helping here at OCF and just at different events that he put on with his family and friends as well, even just as small as remembering each of our names, even though we only see him maybe once a month at the most. So he really was a great man, and we're all really honored to have him serve us.
Now, a few weeks ago, one of our services at church talked about having the courage to do God's will. And I think some of the best leaders that I have admired in the military are just, they provide you with that courage, but the courage comes from God. And Karl was one of those people that, just hearing his stories and everything he's done, he had the courage to do God's will. And I only hope in military career that I've done so far and going forward that I can hear what God's will is for me, and that for everybody that we can follow down that path, because to be able to live life like Karl lives life so fully and humbly, it's just amazing.
You know, something else that struck me too. And when you were talking about leadership and how leadership affects others, I think I can guarantee you that the three other guys in that chopper had huge confidence in the fact that Karl was leading them and he was a man of faith. So when he slammed that throttle to the wall, I'm sure those other three guys in there said, "Yes, let's go get him." And that's what inspired leadership is all about. And isn't it wonderful to have that leadership coupled up with the big guy upstairs?
Now, earlier I spoke of the comprehensive fitness program, and there's the 4 pillars, and there's a really interesting article that you might want to look at. It was written by an Air Force officer. It's called "Spiritually Commanding a Squadron in the 21st Century." Well, that really caught my eye. How can, I mean, that just doesn't seem like that fits. But he went through those 4 pillars of the physical, social, emotional, and spiritual. And the Air Force has a diagram of an aircraft with 4 tie-downs. 2 tie-downs representing these 4 pillars under each wing. And this man says that picture is wrong. He says, and because of that aircraft example, he says, what is that aircraft sitting on? Probably sitting on this much concrete. He says the foundation piece of a person's life is a spiritual dimension. And so he redrew the picture. He had that aircraft sitting on this much concrete. That's that spiritual dimension that Karl was based upon. That was his foundation piece. And then he redrew the picture, and like a typical tie down of a small aircraft, he died one at the nose and one on each wing. And so, but that's an interesting article if you want to read something. Spiritually Commanding a Squadron in the 21st Century. But it just goes to, I think, just point out how Karl had his life based on a solid foundation, which was Jesus Christ. And what's really neat is you guys meeting, those of you that do meet on a regular basis, to grow that into your life. It will serve you well. And then the military says you'll be resilient is what they want you to have in the face of battle. And Karl is a man that was resilient in the face of battle. So keep working on that spiritual component of your life along with the others.
I don't know if you all know the history. Our most famous president was General Harrison. He negotiated the truce in Korea at the end of the Korean War. It's still in effect today. And maybe Trump will be able to make a peace treaty. But there's no peace treaty. and he was probably the most powerful speaker, probably superior to most theologians as far as knowledge of the scripture. And he was probably the longest serving president of OCF. And Cleo Buxton became our executive director after the Second World War. He was a captain in the army, I don't know what they called it at the time, but he spent 180 days behind the German lines in Italy. And so he was telling a story testimony before he would cross the lines with his platoon, I think, side. He would tell them, you know, you might not come back. You better settle right now with Jesus. He would give them invitation to accept Christ before they cross the line. And he became a powerful force for OCF, winding up with two camps. Are you familiar with White Sulphur Springs in Pennsylvania and Spring Canyon in Colorado by Buena Vista? Oh yeah, summer. Oh, are you guys on the mailing list from the headquarters?
I'll get him on the list.
Can you get them on it? No, the thing is, when you find out where you're going to be sent after you graduate from college, there'll be OCF people over there. I even, in my civilian life, I know we took our first trip to Hawaii, and I look up, there's a big conference in Honolulu. OCF. Dr. Bob Smith from Bethel College was the main speaker on the Labor Day weekend. So my wife and my kids and my mother, we spent the time over there. And we had little kids, so one of the colonels had teenage girls, or and they would babysit our kids, you know. So it was helpful. So you don't have to be lonely when you report to your next state or the first state as you go.
Well, these guys need to get back to class.
They do.
So thank you so much for coming, for paying tribute to Karl. What an excellent man of God, excellent servant in all ways, and we've been blessed. And so well, we're hoping to carry this on. So there's a few of us that are the next one is planned. Did you bring that little?
I sure did.
Okay, you can pass them out to these guys. But the next one is planned for the 29th of November. And Colonel Terry Branham, he is a retired Army colonel with some stories that will just rivet you to your seat. But he is a true man of God. So thank you for coming and sharing in this celebration, the further celebration of Karl's life. And have a great rest of your day. And hope we'll see you guys again in November. Thank you.
Thank you.